Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action!
Hi y'all, this is Jerry Williams, aka TV Jerry. Studio Ghibli Fest is running from March 26th through 31st at the Bird Theater. It features animated classics from that studio like Spirited Away, Castle in the Sky, and the recently Oscar-awarded The Boy and the Heron. Visit the theater's website for details.
I walked onto the set and I finally get to meet Richard Attenborough, and I'm like, hi, I'm Tom. I don't know what to call you. Do I call you Richard or Sir Richard? And he goes, oh, Christ, no, call me Dickie.
That was Tom Belgrey talking about meeting director Richard Attenborough when he got cast in Chaplin. Tom was born and raised in Richmond, but moved away for his career, which included numerous movies and TV shows, including a part on every soap opera but one. He's often cast as bad guys, and even an 8-foot worm in Star Trek. Tom's got lots of stories to tell.
Sifter Review of the Week.
The Gentleman on Netflix. In Guy Ritchie's movie version, Matthew McConaughey headed up a cannabis empire in Britain. The director has created this new streaming series based on England's weed industry, but with a new cast headed by Theo James. He starts as a UN peace officer, called home to inherit his father's estate, which makes him a duke. He soon discovers a secret underground marijuana farm on his property, which drops him into the crime world. Of course, this is classic Ritchie territory, even though things are a bit subdued from his usual violent outbursts. There's still a few moments of brutality, but quick and often off camera. Other of his characteristic elements include several idiot characters, sharp dialogue, intricate plotting, amusing on-screen text, and touches of weird, like the groundskeeper's indoor menagerie that includes a fox and a porcupine. The result is a completely enjoyable romp, as we watch one man go from moral aristocrat to scheming crime boss. I gave The Gentleman 3.5 out of 5 stars. Thomas K. Belgrey, welcome to Sifter for the Year.
You can call me Tom. It's easier.
Okay, Tom. Well, that Thomas K. Belgrey is what's your IMDb name, and I noticed the K, does that stand for Kassenbaum?
It does indeed. Belgrey is actually my middle name, but to save my family the embarrassment from having a professional actor in the family. And also, actually, it was an agent in New York who was like, unless you're an Austrian weightlifter, you can't have a 10-letter-long last name. And so that was the name that went on my union card.
So you were raised here in Richmond, and you did a little theater back in those days.
I did.
And then you left and you went to East Carolina University to major in history and political science. How did you decide, okay, I'm going to get back into acting?
I was doing theater when I was in college. I was thoroughly hated in the theater department because I wasn't a theater major and I was getting lead roles, and they got graded based on the roles that they got.
Oh, wow.
So I learned an awful lot about theater tricks and how to screw up somebody on stage, and became really good at being in the moment from that.
Surprise guest drop-in.
Speaking of theater, before we get out to New York and L.A., somebody wanted to drop in and say hello here that you might recognize.
Hey, Tom.
Bruce Miller, the man who started it all.
Yes, he did.
Oh, my goodness. In fact, it is Bruce Miller.
Footnote.
Bruce Miller taught theater at collegiate school part-time when he and Phil Whiteway were starting Theater 4, which became Virginia Rep, where Bruce was artistic director. He continues his leadership role in Richmond Theater as a principal in Whiteway Miller & Associates and Atlas Partnership.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Bruce was my high school drama teacher, and he was the first person to ever give me a part. And I think the play was Murder in the Cathedral.
No, that was somebody else. First play I did with you was The Mousetrap, and you played Paravicini.
Ah, of course, some odd foreign guy. Yeah, I'm gotten really good at that lately.
Yeah, the odd foreign guys were kind of where you were exceptional.
So what do you remember about young Tom back in those days, Bruce?
When I first met him, it was obvious that he needed to be in the cast of something or other. And the first play that I did with him was Mousetrap. And he was terrific in that. And then we went on and did As You Like It. And then when I revived As You Like It at Swift Creek, Theater 4 was producing, but it was at Swift Creek. I pulled Tom from the cast of Collegiate because he'd done such a great job.
Footnote.
Swift Creek is Swift Creek Mill Theater, a dinner theater in Colonial Heights that's still in operation. And what do you remember about that, Tom, that experience on the stage there at Swift Creek?
learning how to ride a mini bike in a small confined space.
Okay.
We did it kind of updated 1950s version, so I played more like Fonzie than Touchstone, which actually kind of fit the part.
Well, he was brave enough to do Shakespeare with a leather jacket and a motorcycle, which is what I asked of him. And I think you reviewed the show, Jerry,
Really?
and
Okay.
gave us a pretty good review. Yeah. And I hunted to see if I could find the review in my files here, but I don't have it here. It's at Virginia Rep, and I don't have access to those files.
Oh.
So I couldn't pull your review.
Oh, that's too bad. And I don't think I have them from that long ago. So it's good that you kept it anyway. So that's great.
But the thing I remember about Tom is that anything I would ask of him, he would try to do it. And when I learned that Tom was doing films, I thought that was just terrific. It always makes a teacher feel really good when the kids that they taught continue to pursue the profession. I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to tell Tom how pleased I am that he has kept up with his love of theater, because he loved it back then in high school. And the fact that he's kept at it really, really makes me feel terrific.
I appreciate that, and it was you who gave me the love for it.
Well, good.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for dropping in. It was great to surprise Tom.
You bet. Bye.
So let's move back to your career. After you got out of college, you worked selling clothes for 5 years, and you had this great line in your bio. I have to read it. It says, he came to the realization that he was not cut out to be in the clothing business and was not even sure he wanted to continue wearing clothing. That's pretty hilarious.
Still have those moments. My father was in the clothing business. My mother owned a clothing store called Burnett's here in Richmond.
I remember that.
I was raised in that business, and after spending 7 days a week for 5 years working in that business, we went to a sales meeting in New York, and my sister is a scenic artist. She was actually vice president of IATSE in New York, and she was working on a Tom Hanks film called Money Pit. And we were up there for a sales meeting. I was with my father, and she invited us over to see what she did. And they had rebuilt this house completely inside the studio in Astoria in Queens. And they opened the studio doors and it was lit. And I was like, this is what I want to do.
So eventually you did move to New York, and then what happened?
When I finally started getting actual roles, the first role I ever had was on a soap opera called Search for Tomorrow.
You did a lot of soaps, didn't you?
Oh my God, yeah. I was on every soap on television except for General Hospital. So that was a great way to make a living. I mean, it was good. You know, you get an under five here or a day player there, and you could pay the bills.
I've heard many actors talk about working on daytime dramas and the experiences that they got out of that. What did you learn? What did that prepare you for even better?
A lot. I mean, the first big role I got was McGuire on Ryan's Hope. And Friday afternoon, there's a stack of scripts, and you take them home and mark them up all weekend. And then, you know, you come in Monday, you shoot a script, boom, it's done. And then Tuesday, brand new script. So you learn to be, you know, you learn the film business. I called it getting paid to go to acting school.
You were in Watchmen, Lincoln, Star Trek Generation, Law and Order, of course, any New York actors in Law and Order, MacGyver,
Except
FBI.
I don't live in New York. I live here.
So tell me about that, because I know you live here and you've worked in LA and you've worked in New York for years. How do you juggle that?
It was pretty hard before COVID. I hate to be thankful for a pandemic, but before that, you know, I was going to New York sometimes twice a week on the bus from Broad Street.
Right.
And, you know, my manager, I picked her up, and her deal was, if you miss one audition, you're gone. I'm never not handling anybody from outside of the town. I never missed an audition. But then my agent in LA would go, hey, I've got an audition for you tomorrow afternoon on Larchmont Boulevard at 3:45. I have to book a plane ticket and get out to LA.
Wow.
A lot of times you can get away. Now everything's on tape. I have a studio I go to. I used the great Mark Joy for years. Man, he was somebody who really meant a lot to me.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace. He really was a mentor.
Footnote.
Mark Joy was a Richmond-based actor who had a successful career on screen. He recently died.
Now everything's online. I just go, you know, 3 blocks from my house and shoot the auditions and send them off, and they go where they go. Generally, they disappear into the atmosphere, but sometimes they come up with something.
So what was your first big role where you said, okay, now I'm here. I've done it?
Haven't had that one yet. No. gosh,
that brings up an interesting point because many actors make their living as character actors, quote unquote, who never get famous, but they make a solid living. I had Rainer Shine, who I imagine you know on the show a couple months ago. He did that his whole career. So you're kind of the same way, right? And it's fine because that way, in a way, you don't have to worry about paparazzi and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and not being a leading man means you don't have to do any nude scenes and kissing people you don't know and stuff like that. So being a bad guy, and basically that's what I am. I play bad guys. That's fun.
So what was the first role where you have a good story to tell us?
One of the things I worked on the movie Chaplin and did a scene with Kevin Kline and Robert Downey Jr.
Footnote.
Chaplin was the biopic starring Robert Downey Jr. as the famous comic, and it was directed by Sir Richard Attenborough.
I walked onto the set and I finally get to meet Richard Attenborough, and I'm like, hi, I'm Tom. I don't know what to call you. Do I call you Richard or Sir Richard? And he goes, oh, Christ, no, call me Dickie. And after that, I was realizing, okay, this is like a business where, people are people, and this is a good place to be.
So you got to work with with recent Oscar winner Robert Downey Jr. How was that interaction?
I don't want to tell that story because he's clean and sober now.
That's true. When you mentioned Chaplin, I thought that was back in the before days.
He was amazing in that film. He deserved, Oscar nod then, but there was some issues.
Well, I know that you played a Russian guy, and Russian has figured into your life more than once. What's that all about?
My grandmother was Russian, and so my agent, for some reason, doesn't think that I speak English, even though I speak to her in English all the time. And she called me up and she goes, Tom, do you speak Serbian? And I was like, Danita, I took like 2 semesters of Russian in college. That's as close as I get.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I think you can do it. And I'm like, doesn't work like that. And God, I've done a ton of thinking. So I did Castle Rock.
Footnote.
Castle Rock was a psychological horror thriller from Stephen King's writings. It aired in 2018.
And that role was completely in French, not a word of English in that one.
And you parlez-vous français?
Je parle un petit peu, mais pas bien. I ended up bartending in Italy for a while. And as bartending in Italy, I learned to speak enough German to get by with German stuff. So ich kann Deutsch aussprechen. Ja, das ist kein Problem. Aber my agent, knows I can do those things. And parts where, it's just doing the accents, like on Watchmen.
Footnote.
Watchmen was a dark superhero series based on the DC Comics, and it aired on HBO in 2019.
The part I did on Watchmen was originally completely in German. And I did the audition in German. And I get to the set and the actor doesn't speak German. And so the director's like, can you do a German accent? So the scene was basically, it was DC Comics. And I'm a DC Comics guy. I'm not a Marvel guy because DC Comics keeps hiring me as a bad guy. Although I wasn't a bad guy in that. But my whole purpose in Watchmen was to introduce the Superman character just to make sure you knew that Watchmen was DC Comics.
So you ended up speaking it with an accent.
I took accents. I've done so many weird things. I got an Outback Steakhouse commercial with an Australian accent. Not I do Australian accents, I'm not great with that sort of thing. But I go in and there's an actor who, I grew up watching this guy. He was like on the Wild Wild West in the 60s. He was all over the place. I don't know crap about Australia or Australian accents. They go, what's your name and where are you from? They go, my name's so-and-so, I'm from Sydney. Oh, what's that like? Oh, Sydney's bloody marvelous. It's got a bridge, and he's just going on and on. And then they get to me, and what's your name? Where are you from? And I said, my name's Tom. And where are you from? I said, I'm from Richmond. And I got the part, and he didn't.
I know, of course, that there are dialect coaches on sets a lot of times. So when you have to do these accents, is there somebody there to make sure you're getting it, or you just have a natural ear for it?
Natural ear for it. It's weird. My wife is from Sweden, and so Swedish is spoken in my house fairly regularly. If you pick up one language, then picking up other ones, just the ear for it is easier, I guess.
So speaking of Swedish, how did you get to know Will Ferrell, who of course has a Swedish wife too?
Yeah, Vivica. She had a kid about the same time we had our oldest son, Carl. There was a Swedish mommies group. And so my son, Carl, used to play up at Will Ferrell's house when he was a baby up on Mulholland. When they lived up there, they've moved now.
Did you ever get to interact with Will, or was that strictly a mommy thing?
We went to a Christmas party at his house. I have a picture of my son sitting on Will Ferrell's lap. Standing behind him is Brooke Shields with her kid. He dressed up as Jultomten. Jultomten is the Swedish version of Santa Claus.
So I'm assuming he's just as much of a crack up as he is on camera as he is in person.
Let me do my Will Ferrell imitation.
Oh, please do.
So, what are you saying again?
Is that it?
Not a crack up off camera, very much. There was a Swedish school at a Lutheran church in Santa Monica, and Vivica asked me to help him take some stuff down to their car, a Volvo, of course. I'm walking down the staircase with him, and I said, "Oh, I hear you're headed to Sweden." And he's like, "Mm-hmm." I said, "Oh, what part?" And he goes, "What do you want to know?" I was like, "Dude, I'm just making conversation here, you know."
Yeah, right.
I said, "My wife's from the West Coast. Are you going to West Coast or East Coast?" He's like, "East Coast."
So basically, what you're saying is when he's not on, Will Ferrell
He's
is
very
not
serious,
on.
and it's like he's studying you when he's talking to you one on one.
Okay.
It's very focused, and to be as good as he is, focus is important.
So, what was your experience like working with Mr. Steven Spielberg?
Oh, my oldest son, Carl, the first time they handed him to me, I was in the Max and Amy Spielberg suite at UCLA Santa Monica. And I remember looking at him going, this little bastard's going to turn into a teenager on me. Why did I do this? And then, secondly, looking at the name on the wall going, and this is as close as I will ever get to Steven Spielberg in my life.
Right.
I was only right about one of those things. He's definitely a teenager. He's 19 now, and
Footnote.
Tom was in Lincoln, which Steven Spielberg shot in the Richmond area. So, did you get to interact with Spielberg at all?
he didn't for the first week I was on set. The screenwriter, Tony Kushner, just told me, look, we hired you because you're just a dark presence. And we want you to be anchoring all the scene where these guys are saying these really horrible things, but with a, 1860 political flourish. And
Right.
we want you to be like the dark cloud in the corner there. And so most of the scenes on the dark cloud. And then when I went in there the first time, we were shooting inside the Capitol building of the, Commonwealth of Virginia. And they
Right.
said, oh, by the way, there's no smoking allowed here. And on my way home, I stopped at the 7-Eleven by VCU and got a thing of Red Man chewing tobacco and spent all weekend trying not to be really ill. And so I went in and I got a spittoon and I was like practicing spitting in the spittoon. And they were like, oh, we want you to do that when you're voting. And so they did a close up and Steven sitting there. And, this is my close up, Steven Spielberg. And they go action and I vote no and then spit into the spittoon. And they all cracked up. They thought it was hilarious. And so after that, whenever Steven would come and sit on the desk for the next week and a half, he would like scoot over and include me in with the other two main principal actors in those scenes. So,
Great.
yeah, I got to talk to him a lot. He talked a lot about his kids and primarily how he was unhappy that they all wanted to go to Brown and none of them wanted to go to USC because he was on the board at USC. I went to UCLA.
That's probably why they didn't want to go there. You worked with Mario Van Peebles?
Mario, yeah. I didn't have a huge amount of interaction in that one, and I think I got cut out of the thing. I get cut out of a lot of stuff too. That's the other thing is I've gotten to the point now where I never tell anybody that I'm going to be on something tonight. I did an NBC show called The Enemy Within. I was the top of show guest star. I mean, I was the bad guy.
Right.
They're chasing me the whole show, and then the good guys get to kill me in the end, which is the joy of what I do. So I got completely cut out of that. And I do, strangely enough, still get residuals because they showed me for 3 seconds making a bomb, the mysterious Serbian bomb maker where the kid gets the bomb from.
How many residual checks do you think you get?
A lot, but they're always, sometimes you get them for as little as 1 penny, but I'd say it average about 3 or 4 a week. But a lot of it is just, stuff I did. I did a Star Trek Next Generation episode in 1992. And weirdly enough, those checks have been going up for the past few years. They were normally like $7 or $8, and now they're like $30. Ken, I finally got my first check, weirdly enough, for a MacGyver episode, the new MacGyver, for what we struck for. So I got a check for usage on streaming. That's the first time I've ever seen it. A whole $1.60 changed my day.
What was it like working on MacGyver?
I was playing a Romanian bad guy. Wasn't too much to it. We shot in a mansion on Peachtree Boulevard in Atlanta.
So why do you think you get cast as the bad guy so much?
It's strange because if I'm in Europe, everybody immediately tags me as an American. But here, apparently, I'm an opaque character who's foreign. So, I play foreign bad guys. And for me, it's, a good way to get all the frustrations and stuff out of my system. And it's fun. I won't deny playing bad guys is fun. I'm never going to get cast as, actually, no, I take that back. I shot a movie here in Virginia a couple of years ago where I played a sweet grandfatherly type. I always have what I called my actor's makeup mantra. If it's character makeup, if it's like stuff, but on the soaps, they used to, almost with a putty knife. That was before the video cameras got better. Now I go on the
Right.
set, they just go, "Yep, he's fine," because
Wow. Wow.
I'm usually playing horrible people, and I'm look pretty horrible when I go on set, so it all works out. They don't barely put makeup on me anymore.
Well, so what was that movie that you were talking about?
It hasn't come out yet. They're still editing it. We shot in Stanton. It's called 500 Fireflies, I think.
Okay. Well, we'll have to look for that.
But it was wonderful shooting in Virginia. I would love to shoot more here, but it ain't going to be happening for a while. We did not get the bill we wanted passed this past month.
Footnote.
The bill he's referring to was to renew the tax incentives for productions shot in Virginia. And Film Office Director Andy Edmonds will talk more about it when he's on the show in 2 weeks. You mentioned Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah.
What was that part on that?
I got hired to play 8-foot long worm. I mean, it's kind of personality suitable thing. And then I get stuck in the beam. I'm on a shuttle, and the shuttle gets in trouble. And so they try beaming everybody off, and it doesn't work. And so we get caught in the beam, and he's got this phobia of going into the beam because he saw this worm thing in there. And then he finally goes in and embraces the worm and brings it back with him, and it turns into me.
Oh, wow. So you weren't actually in a worm costume. You were
No.
the
That
worm
was
after
all.
it.
I mean, it's just like the beam. They say, okay, go over there, stand on that circle. All right, stand off the circle, and then they film for another, 20 seconds, and then, they put those two together in post and make you beam on and off the ship.
What do you like about commercials?
Well, I don't shoot them anymore, primarily because they're all non-union now. I've shot commercials in Italy. That was I did an Opel commercial for Europe, and they flew me over there. It was Bob Dylan's son, Jesse Dylan, was the director. It was raining. We're sitting in the middle of Rome, and it started raining. We're shooting exteriors, and so we both jump in the back of a car. And he's going, "Oh yeah, this reminds me when I was a kid. My dad pulled me in the back of a limousine down in Lower Manhattan, and Jimi Hendrix was sitting in there. And so I'm sitting in the back of a limo with Jimi Hendrix and my dad, and I'm going, yep, not on the list of memories that I have like that,
The closest you got was sitting in the back with him.
Well, yeah. I did a bunch of commercials in Tokyo, believe it or not. They flew us over to Tokyo 3 times to shoot cup noodle commercials. So back in the day, commercials was a great way to make a lot of money real quick.
So when you're not working on a movie, working on a TV show or whatever, what do you like to watch?
I like to watch historical stuff in news programs.
Is there anything in particular you're watching, any particular show that you like?
I'm watching a lot of stuff on YouTube, believe it or not.
That's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is a rabbit hole. And once you start going down that rabbit hole, it's just like, oh my God, what's that from? Oh, wow, that's interesting. I've always wondered about that. And then, and so as far as network stuff is concerned, weirdly enough, I've watched The Voice just because my wife is totally addicted to that, but she was also addicted to Dateline, NBC. She is a huge Dateline fan to the point where she was taking notes. Oh yeah, that one got caught for this. I'm not going to make that mistake. I don't wonder what happened to all those notebooks. But so anything ever happens to him. No, I'm kidding. But she does like that show. But weirdly enough, I just watched a couple of months ago a network series on Netflix called The Night Agent.
Right.
Just an interesting thing. And then the last 2 auditions I've done were for the bad guy on that show and for a Swiss diplomat on that show. So I could use the German and the Eastern European in that.
And you're on those? Will we be seeing those?
Nope, didn't get them. I've done auditions where I knew I was 100% right for the part. That last audition I did for The Night Agent, Eastern European bad guy, I nailed the audition. Right. But, one of the producers says, oh, that looks like my brother-in-law smacked my sister around last night. I'm never going to hire anybody who looks like that. That is the criteria that you're dealing with. If you don't get, you can do the best you can do. Beyond that, once it gets in the hands of directors and producers and stuff, they have their criteria. So I just go and do the best I can do and go on to the next thing. That's all you can do.
So, Tom, it's amazing that we've both been working in this town all these years and have never met, but I'm glad I finally got a chance to get to know you a little bit today.
Well, I'm the same on this end, Jerry. I've heard about you for years and never met you. And now I'm meeting you like this. But how I'm set up, I really don't work a lot in Virginia anymore.
Right.
But right now, I'm just trying to get over the strike and get back to work at all. So.
Yeah, and now that I'm retired, I don't direct. So we'll never work together, but we'll run into each other one of these days, maybe at a VPA meeting.
Maybe. You never can tell.
All right, Tom, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Tom Belgrey talking about just some of the numerous movies and TV shows he's been on. I'll include a link to his IMDb page with pics from some of the shows on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
Coming soon. In theaters.
Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This newest iteration is supposedly more scary. It combines the cast from the last film, Paul Rudd and Finn Wolfhard, with originals Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson, and some new comic faces. Immaculate. Sydney Sweeney stars as a novice nun who finds her new home has dark secrets. Sleeping Dogs. Ironically, considering the Michael Keaton movie Knox Goes Away, this has another older actor, Russell Crowe, with memory loss. But in this case, he's an ex-cop facing a murder case from his forgotten past. Late Night with the Devil. A live TV show on Halloween 1997 goes horribly wrong and unleashes evil into the nation's living rooms. You Can Call Me Bill, a documentary on the 9-decade life of William, or Bill, Shatner. Luca, the Disney Pixar animation from 2021 has been re-released. It's about the friendship between a human and a sea monster disguised as a human.
TV and streaming.
American Rust on Prime. Jeff Daniels plays the compromised chief of police in a Rust Belt town in southwest Pennsylvania. You'll Never Find Me on Shudder. A lonely man who lives in a mobile home meets a mysterious woman who shows up after a storm. The Long Shadow on AMC. Another series in search for a serial killer, and this one takes place in Yorkshire. Madhu on Disney. Anthony Madhu is a Nigerian boy who dances ballet barefoot, and his video becomes a viral sensation. Shirley on Netflix. Regina King stars as Shirley Chisholm, the first black woman elected to Congress. Sperm World on FX and Hulu, a documentary about online forums where sperm donors connect with hopeful parents. Next week, we enter the world of virtual reality with Mark Lambert, who started his career in visual effects for major motion pictures and has pivoted over to creating VR for clients around the world. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sister, including literally thousands of reviews,
Visit tvjerry.com.